Time has expired. We'll move to question time. Senator Cash.
Thank you. My question is—
beg your pardon. Sorry, Senator Wong.
Thank you, President. I seek leave to make a statement concerning ministerial arrangements for question time.
Leave granted. Leave is granted, Senator Wong.
Thank you. I thank the Senate. Senator Gallagher will be absent from question time today, obviously on account of commitments related to the presentation of the budget. In her absence, ministers will represent portfolios at question time in accordance with the letter circulated to the President and party leaders and independent senators.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Please reset the clock for Senator Cash. Senator Cash.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. On Thursday last week at a press conference, the Prime Minister was asked, "Prime Minister, what did you make of the treatment of women, those allegations that surfaced from that 60 Minutes report?" The Prime Minister's answer was, "Oh, they were appalling." He then moved on to take the next question. Minister, do the women bashed, harassed and treated appallingly by CFMEU members in that 60 Minutes report not deserve more than 4 words from the Prime Minister? Doesn't the Prime Minister of our country have more to say than just 4 words on this matter of national importance, which is tearing our construction industry apart and costing Australians billions of dollars?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, first, the allegations and the footage that was aired on 60 Minutes was sickening, and we are very clear that everyone in this country deserves a safe and respectful workplace, and these women should not have been subject to such hostile and offensive behaviour. And I understand that Senator Watt has referred the matter to the Victorian Deputy Premier as the Minister for WorkSafe and asked that appropriate action be taken in this jurisdiction, and the allegations of violence have been referred to the Australian Federal Police, where they fall within the AFP's jurisdiction. But let's be clear about what Senator Cash is actually suggesting, and Mr Dutton is actually suggesting, and that is they are proposing to deregister the CFMEU, which would hand the keys back to Mr Sector. Hand the keys back to Mr Sector. So I want to be very clear about the proposition that those opposite who are seeking to gain as much political division around this as possible, their so-called solution would actually hand the keys to the CFMEU back to John Setka, the person who the Prime Minister kicked out of the Labor Party.
Thank you, Minister Wong.
Let's be clear, that is the action.
Minister Wong, I have Senator Cash on her feet. Senator Cash.
Thank you, and it's a point of order in relation to relevance. The question was specifically in relation to the Prime Minister's almost dismissal of the allegations that women were bashed, harassed and treated appallingly by CFMEU members. And I'll ask you to draw the Minister to the question, please.
Senator Cash, thank you. The matter was about the 60 Minutes program, and yes, you did refer to the Prime Minister, and the Minister is being directly relevant to your question. Minister Wong, please continue.
The Prime Minister and everyone in this government stands against violence against women. Full stop.
Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. And Minister, it's mums and dads, Australia's mums and dads, who pay for Labor's failure to stamp out criminality in the construction sector. Mum and dad pay more for hospitals, roads and schools, and they pay every day through lost opportunities. There are very real concerns that taxpayer money is flowing into the pockets of bikies, and that CFMEU members of outlaw motorcycle gangs are reportedly being paid up to $10,000 a week for jobs that require little or no work. Minister, can you confirm if these concerns are true or not?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
What I can confirm is that many of the allegations that have surfaced, and they are appalling allegations, surfaced as a result of the administrator's investigations. What I can also confirm is that a number of these events occurred on your watch. Right. On your watch, when the ABCC was still in place. What I can confirm is your policy would ensure that those criminal elements could gain control again of that organisation, could be back in workplaces, could be back in the employment circumstance without regulation. What I can confirm is that this would mean that you would be giving the keys to the CFMEU back to Mr Setka and his cronies. We are clear. Organised crime has no place in the Australian trade union movement.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Minister, are you still a member of the CFMEU, and is this why you're so keen to defend them from any scrutiny?
Thank you, Senator. Order. Order. Senator Minister Wong, I haven't called you. I'm waiting for order. Minister Wong, please continue.
I'm very happy to answer this very personal question. I was a member of the I am a member of the furnishing division. I was a member of the furnishing trades union, including the loggers. Stood up with timber workers and timber owners in support of the timber industry. It is the furniture and manufacturing sector, and this really shows you don't understand who is standing up to organised crime in the trade union movement.
Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Minister, have you finished your answer?
As I was saying, it really shows that those on the other side just have a general anti-union attitude, that those divisions of the CFMEU who have stood against criminal elements inside the union because we do not believe our movement should have any truck with organised crime, that you don't even understand who has stood up in our movement against organised crime, including the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Order. Order. Senators, when I call order, I expect order. Senator McKenzie. Senator Marielle Smith.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. We know Australians have been facing cost of living pressures and that access to affordable health care is a concern. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare and making it easier and cheaper to see a doctor?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Smith, and I thank you for your question. And I know you, Senator Smith, and all of the senators on this side and the whole Labor team understand that cost of living is the most important issue for Australians at the moment, and that is why it has been front and centre in every budget Labor has delivered. And we have been working hard to clean up the Liberals and Nationals mess, especially in health. And we have made the largest investment in Medicare in more than 40 years. We have expanded bulk billing, so it's no longer in freefall, so more Australians can see a doctor. We're training more doctors in our cities and in our regions. We've opened 87 urgent care clinics, and we've promised to open 50 more. We're making medicines cheaper. We've invested more than $500 million to deliver more choice, lower costs and better health care for Australian women. And what is clear, Senator Smith, is that all of this is at risk under a potential Dutton Liberal National government. What is clear is that Mr Dutton would seek to cut much of this cost of living support that the government is providing. We know he's already promised cuts. The Shadow Treasurer said on the weekend that they would cut everything they'd opposed in opposition. Senator Hume has confirmed that Labor spent around $374 billion more than what the Liberals would have. That accounts for all the additional expenditure this term, everything from indexation of pensions to national security and defence spending. But, of course, they refuse to outline exactly what they'd cut to pay for the $600 billion nuclear scheme. But if you listen carefully to Mr Dutton, Senator Hume, Mr Taylor, what we know is those opposite would gut Medicare, would wind back Labor's investments in women's health, would stop funding urgent care clinics and make it more expensive to see a GP. He cuts, you pay.
Thank you.
He cuts, you pay.
The time has expired. Senator Smith, first supplementary.
Minister, last week the Albanese Labor government announced it is making cheaper medicines even cheaper. Having already slashed the cost of medicines with the largest cut to the cost of medicine in the history of the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme in 2023, Labor is now going further with a script to cost Australians no more than $25 under the PBS. Minister, can you explain why Australians can only trust a Labor government to invest in health, make medicines cheaper and strengthen Medicare?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister.
Well, why do we know this? Well, because as Mr Dutton said, and I quote, "Past performance is the best indicator of future practice." Past performance is the best indicator of future practice. Let's have a look at Mr Dutton's past performance. In 2013, the Liberals promised no cuts to health, and then Mr Dutton cut $50 billion from hospitals. Just months later, as Health Minister, Mr Dutton tried to introduce a GP tax on every single Australian patient. And when he couldn't get it through Parliament, what did he do? He started a six-year freeze of Medicare rebates, the Dutton Medicare rebate freeze. No wonder doctors voted him the worst health minister in the history of Medicare. And, of course, Senator Ruston confirmed we have never said that Australians will get access to free GP services. She let the cat out of the bag. Mr Dutton and the Liberals just can't be trusted with Medicare.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Minister, as you mentioned earlier, the Liberals and Nationals confirmed on the weekend that they plan to cut all of the cost of living measures they opposed in this chamber, from cheaper medicines at urgent care clinics to tax cuts for every taxpayer. Can the minister highlight how Labor's cost of living relief is helping Australians, and what minister is at risk from promises to cut Labor's measures?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, the Albanese government has been working to put in place responsible measures to help Australians with the cost of living, and our plan is working. Those opposite, the Libs and the Nationals, still don't have a plan, and all cost of living measures are at risk. And you know what? Their own party room knows it. Last week, a senior Liberal told The Australian it was unclear what Mr Dutton stood for, while a Liberal MP labelled the Shadow Treasurer a dead weight. A dead weight. Well, we saw the dead weight on show in the disastrous interview on Sunday, where he managed not only to confirm you will cut everything that you've opposed, but contradicted Mr Dutton on your divestiture policy, contradicted Mr Dutton on the citizenship referendum. He made unbelievable claims about the cost of Mr Dutton's nuclear reactors, and he managed to split with the Shadow Finance Minister on public sector cuts. I mean, what an extraordinarily bad interview.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President. My question is also to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, the Australian Labor Party posted a meme on their social media platforms on Sunday, which is based on a notoriously offensive T-shirt that is currently held in the Museums Victoria as an artefact of racism in Australia. The original version of this T-shirt has been worn by white supremacists to express racism sentiment, including neo-Nazi Michael Harcrow. Will the minister make a clear promise to the Australian public that the Labor Party will not promote any further racist, hate-based material in your desperate pursuit of a baseless scare campaign?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Order. 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 Before I invite Minister Wong, I am failing to see how this relates to portfolio matters. I'm advised by the clerk she is struggling to see that as well. So I will invite Minister Wong to respond to the question in whatever way she thinks is appropriate.
We are a party that has a long history of standing against racism, and we always will. Unlike those opposite, we do not believe people have a right to be a bigot. Unlike those opposite, we do not believe people have a right to offend others. It was you and your party, including Senator Cash and Senator Patterson, who wanted to remove those protections from 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. Our position on racial discrimination, it is clear, it is consistent, and it will always be thus.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Minister, in reference to the article in the Sydney Morning Herald today, the Australian Labor Party has defended the use of this racist and offensive T-shirt by stating that your party is seeking to reach everyone with our message. Is this an acknowledgement that the Labor Party is so desperate to whip up a new scare campaign that you're even willing to promote racist material used by white supremacists?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Again, that is not a portfolio matter question, but the minister is entitled to respond if she so chooses.
I refer to my previous answer. Our position against racism is clear across our party. Can you say the same, Senator?
Order. 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 Senator Ruston is on her feet. Senator Ayres, order. Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Senator Wong, given the article in the Sydney Morning Herald today and the Prime Minister's response to that article where he failed to condemn it, you say that the government and the Labor Party does not stand for racism or supporting of of this kind of behaviour, white supremacist support. Can you be clear and give a full condemnation of the post?
Thank you. And before I call the minister, I am ruling order. I am ruling the question in order because it refers to a statement made by the Prime Minister. Minister Wong.
Senator,
order. Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order. I am asking for order and silence. Senator Patterson and Senator Ayres, order. If you can't remain silent, leave the chamber. Silence is what I've asked for. Minister Wong.
I condemn racism in all its forms. I condemn racism and prejudice when it is. How is that not relevant?
Senator Ruston.
I draw your attention to the question and relevance. I was asking about a condemnation of a post, not a general view.
The minister is just into her response, and so far I think she is being relevant. Please continue, Minister.
We condemn racism in all its form, in all circumstances. I condemned it when your Attorney-General stood here and said people have a right to be bigots. I didn't remember any of you condemning it then. We condemned it. We condemned it when you, Senator Cash, and you, Senator Patterson, said that the protections for people in this country against offensive language, a language that was designed to offend, we said no to your desire to take those protections out of the Racial Discrimination Act.
It is very. Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
On relevance, I've merely asked the minister if she will condemn the post.
Senator Ruston, the minister is in order, and I invite the minister to continue her response. And I expect her to be heard in silence. Minister.
I absolutely, and I'm surprised I would even have to say this. Of course, we should all stand against white supremacism. And I, for one, have been on the receiving end of some of what they have said and done.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Just a moment, Senator Kim. It's disrespectful to me when I've asked for silence, and I heard Senator McKenzie first, immediately, Senator Cash and Senator McGrath. Silence means silence. Be respectful towards my orders. Senator McKim.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, is the Prime Minister aware that industrial salmon farming corporations in Tasmania are responsible for millions of fish deaths in the last month alone, egregious animal cruelty by suffocating countless live fish, devastation of the marine environment by blanketing vast swathes of the sea floor with sludge and slime, pollution of much-loved beaches to the extent that people can't go swimming without bumping into rotten salmon carcasses or walking on beaches without their feet being coated by stinking, congealed remnants of dead salmon, and the looming extinction of an ancient species? Why, in the middle of a social, environmental, animal welfare and extinction crisis, is the Prime Minister choosing to work with Mr Dutton to gut Australia's environment protection laws for the benefit of multinational corporations who pay no tax?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. This is a specific amendment to address a flaw in the EPBC Act. And what I would say to you, Senator, is we're not going to stand by and see workers lose their jobs because the law is broken. Now, I know that we are the Labor Party and we care about jobs, and I know that
Order. Order. Senator Henderson, which part of order doesn't apply to you? Minister, please continue.
I know that Senator Urquhart and all of the Tasmanian Labor senators do know firsthand the importance of Tasmanian jobs, and I know that your party doesn't have the same view about Tasmanian jobs, Senator. You make assertions about the motivation for this, and you like to use the word corporations. You don't talk about workers. You don't talk about workers. You don't talk about jobs.
Order. Would you, Minister Wong, please resume your seat. When I call for order, it also applies to the party at the back of the room. Minister Wong, please continue.
You talk about corporations. We talk about workers. We don't hear you talking about workers and jobs and the communities who rely on them. So what I would say to you, Senator, is we know these laws.
Order. Senator Whish-Wilson, you are drowning out the minister. Senator Whish-Wilson, you are not in an argument with me. I want there to be silence, and I expect silence. Senator Urquhart. Minister Wong, please continue.
Now, it is unfortunate that these laws over the last 10 years have not been reformed. It's also unfortunate that we haven't been in a position to gain sufficient support in this place and also through the community for reform to laws which I think there is broad agreement from both sides of the debate that these laws are broken. Now, I appreciate that the Greens do. Oh, jeez.
Order. Senator Shoebridge and Senator Ayres. Minister, please continue.
I think there is broad agreement that the environmental laws of this country are broken, that they don't.
Order. Senator McKim, I should not have to be calling out individual senators. I've asked for silence. You are being disrespectful towards me. Save your comments for taking note or some other time. Do not direct them at me when I've called for order. Minister Wong, please continue.
These laws don't protect the environment sufficiently, nor do they protect workers and the community they live in.
The time for answering has expired. Senator McKim, first supplementary.
Minister, why is the Prime Minister claiming that the legislation is limited in effect to salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour when in fact it is not? Can you confirm that the legislation to amend the EPBC just introduced in the House contains nothing whatsoever that would preclude it from preventing the Environment Minister from reconsidering fossil fuel projects, other mines, land clearing actions or large industrial developments?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Wong.
2 points I'd say. 2 points I'd say. The first is these are specific amendments to address a flaw in the EPBC Act. And secondly, I predict that it doesn't matter what my answer is, you're going to make those scare campaigns anyway because you don't support these changes. I mean, that is the approach the Australian Greens take. I've seen this over many years. That is the approach you will take on these issues. I think it is very clear that there is a problem with these laws. It is something that has been identified over a number of years, including under the previous government, and we do need The fact that this legislation is having to come forward is a demonstration of the flaws in the current Act.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKim, second supplementary.
Minister, you say that the legislation is to correct a flaw in the EPBC Act. Is the flaw that your government has discovered that in a limited range of cases the Act actually does give effect to protection of the environment? Is that the flaw? Is that the flaw that you are referring to?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Wong.
No, that is not the case, Senator. That is not what I mean. The existing law means an industry has to shut down overnight when an environmental assessment commences. Senator, why is it that you cannot listen to me without shouting? Would you like me just to sit down? Because all you're doing is shouting. So if you want shouting time, not question time, I'm happy to sit down. You can just shout for a while.
Order.
But
Order.
mate, if the clock's been run out, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror.
Minister Wong, I invite you to respond to me.
Well, I'm just, they seem to have difficulty not shouting while you move shouting time. But they'll probably second it, Senator Mackenzie. I suspect that we would lose that vote. The existing law means an industry has to be shut down overnight when an environmental assessment commences. It's not acceptable to the government, and I'd venture a suggestion it's not acceptable to the community.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Cost of living pressures are top of mind for Australian workers and households. While we are starting to see real wages growing, unemployment at record lows and inflation coming down, there's still more to do. How is the Albanese Labor government helping Australian workers earn more and keep more of what they earn? And how are the government's workplace relations reforms helping Australian workers deal with cost of living pressures?
Senator Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Green, for the question. 3 years ago, Labor promised to get wages moving again, and 3 years on, the Albanese Labor government has delivered. When Australians voted out a coalition government 3 years ago, they had endured 5 consecutive quarters of real wages falling, wages going backwards. And now, after 3 years of the Albanese Labor government, we've seen 5 consecutive quarters of real wage growth, wages going forwards. Literally a mirror image of the coalition's policy of deliberately keeping wages low. Labor is unapologetically for working people getting ahead, and we've delivered higher wages, low unemployment and lower inflation, with interest rates now starting to come down. There is still more to do, but our changes to workplace laws mean there's more money going into people's pockets. The average Australian full-time worker is now earning over $200 a week more under Labor than they were under the coalition, and more Australians are in work than ever before. While we're focused on growing jobs and lifting wages, all we hear from those opposite is about cutting jobs and cutting pay. Just yesterday on the ABC, I sat across from Senator Hume as she repeatedly suggested jobs should be cut from, wait for it, the Department of Veterans Affairs. Senator Hume said, if it's a backlog that you're clearing in Veterans Affairs, why do you need permanent staff now? So after Labor has finally cleared the backlog of 42,000 veterans claims left behind by the coalition, Senator Hume and the coalition reckon we can cut those workers again, starting the backlogs again. So despite Peter Dutton telling people there won't be frontline job cuts, his own shadow minister is out there telling us their real plan. It is becoming very clear we can expect the same thing to happen in Australia with the 36,000 job cuts, because when Peter Dutton cuts,
Minister
you
Watt,
pay.
The time has expired. Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Minister. Mr Dutton and the Coalition have voted against every single one of the government's cost of living support measures. Now Mr Dutton is promising a suite of cuts but refuses to outline what is on his chopping block. Why is it so important that the rights of Australian workers don't end up on Mr Dutton's chopping block?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Green. We do know that workers' rights are on the chopping block at this election. Already, Mr Dutton has promised to cut the right to disconnect, same job, same pay, casual protections, and just recently he told women working from home they could job share, halving their pay. But we still don't know what other cuts Peter Dutton has planned, because he won't be honest with the Australian people. He won't tell Australians what jobs amongst the 36,000 public service job cuts that he will cut. He won't tell Australians what the extra targeted repeals of workplace laws will be when his shadow treasurer promises there will be more. Senator Cash won't even turn up and debate me at the National Press Club during the campaign. That's how much they don't want to tell people. But what we do know is they are taking their marching orders from their mates in big business. We had the H.R. Nichols Society recently hand over their election wish list, and that includes things like abolishing all awards and the conditions that come with them. And what did the coalition say? Well, Michael Sukkar said, having had that detailed work,
Minister.
they can now crack on and get moving quickly with it.
Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Minister. Given everything is on Mr Dutton's chopping block, especially workers' pay and conditions, why is it so important that no cuts are made to workers' wages and entitlements?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Green. Well, we know the working people of Australia won't stand for Peter Dutton's cuts, and I reckon some of those opposite are starting to know that too. As we heard of insiders over the weekend, the coalition are turning on each other more every day. They've started leaking, briefing against the leader of the opposition leader, undermining the shadow treasurer. One described the shadow treasurer's insiders interview as very strange, putting it kindly. We even heard on the weekend that apparently supporters of Angus Taylor are keeping a hit list of people who've been leaking against him. They're checking that list twice. They're going to find out who's naughty and who's nice, because Angus Taylor is coming to town. But now, even today, we see a new article in the Sydney Morning Herald headlined, "The leaking has to stop. Dutton warns dissent will cost seats." They are now leaking about directives not to leak against each other. Several MPs at the meeting, not authorised to speak about it publicly, said Mr Dutton warned internal dissent could cost a few seats, and they singled on the New South Wales moderates.
And Senator Watt, I do remind you, order, Senator McKenzie. Senator Watt, I do remind you to refer to those in the other place by their correct titles. Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Minister McAllister. Minister, how many households with an income of $200,000 or more will receive the $150 energy bill rebate?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President, and thank you, Senator Pocock, for the question. Well, as has been clear, our approach in providing energy bill relief has been to make sure that every household gets access to this. And I understand that you may have a different view about whether that is necessary, but we take the view that families across the country are under pressure, and we do what we can to help. We've known that addressing cost of living is a significant priority for this government across the entire term, and it's why we've taken the steps that we have, delivering tax cuts, delivering energy bill relief for households, getting wages moving again, making medicines cheaper, making it easier to see a GP. All of these steps have been put in place so as to—
Thank you, Minister McAllister. Senator Pocock.
Sorry, President, just on a point of order, relevance. I had no preamble. Very tight question. I understand their rationale. I'm just asking how many people who earn more than $200,000 a year are getting these rebates.
The Minister has been relevant to your question, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. And we are clear that every household will receive bill relief. And in addition to that, many businesses, around 1 million small businesses, will also receive relief. But in the long term, Senator, we do know that the transformation of the energy system is necessary to get prices under control. We came to government and faced a very serious situation in the energy system. Almost a decade of failed energy policies, 22 policies, none of them landed.
Minister McAllister, please resume your seat. Senator Pocock.
President, on relevance, I had absolutely no preamble. I had a one-sentence question that was how many people who earn more than $200,000 a year are receiving the rebate.
And that's the same point
How is
of
that
order.
relevant?
Senator Pocock, that's the same point of order you stood on, and I've ruled on that. The Minister is being relevant. Minister, please continue.
Thanks, President. As I was indicating, we came to government under circumstances where there had been 22 failed energy policies, none of them landed. There was significant work to do to restore order, to restore confidence in the electricity system, and we've set about taking the necessary steps to make that happen, to restore confidence in the investment community.
Minister McAllister. Senator Lambie.
It's a point of order and it's relevant. It's a simple question. How many people on 200,000 is this going
Senator
to?
Lambie,
and if you don't have a number,
Lambie,
it's
please.
because you have not done your homework.
Seat. Senator Lambie, first of all, direct the point of order to me. You're not raising a point of order with the minister. That's the third time that point of order has been raised. The minister has answered the question and is being relevant. Minister McCarthy. Senator Lambie, resume your seat unless you have a question towards me. Senator Lambie.
I just have a question if you explain to me how that is relevant to the question, because I'm sorry, I must be stupid in here, but if you explain the relevance to me so I understand your thinking, because I'm not accepting what you say. I just want an answer.
Senator Lambie, resume your seat. You're not in a debate with me. Senator Lambie, come to order. Senator Lambie, come to order or you'll be named. Senator Lambie, Senator Pocock has asked the question. The minister has answered the question. It may not be in the terms that specifically meet your needs, but she has answered the question. Senator Lambie, resume your seat. Senator McAllister, please continue.
Thanks, President. And to say for the third time, this is a measure that applies to all households, Senators, and so it applies to all households irrespective of the level of income of that household. Thank you, Minister.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. That's incredibly disappointing, given the last 3 years we've heard about preambles and relevance that, I don't know, we'll have to look at what can be done because I don't accept that that was relevant. Minister, how many households could have been supported to install batteries for the $7.8 billion total cost of the ongoing energy bill relief measures? And how much ongoing savings would that have given?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. Well, your question acknowledges that the government is providing an additional $150 in energy bill relief, and that extends the existing bill relief arrangements to the end of 2025. And as I indicated in response to your primary question, that means every household will receive support to bring down their energy bills. But it is also true, Senator, and we are in agreement here, that there are other opportunities to support households to bring down their bills. And those opportunities include investments in solar at home, in batteries at home. And our energy saving package, which we've canvassed on a number of occasions in this chamber, is doing exactly this. So we are delivering energy saving upgrades to around 100,000 social housing residents across the country with the Social Housing Energy Performance Initiative. We've provided $1 billion to turbocharge lending through the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, working with banks and other lenders to finance energy upgrades for 110,000 homes, and we're funding ARENA to do electrification trials.
Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister. Minister, will the government commit to structural reform and a substantial electrification and energy efficiency package to get households off gas and substantially reduce household energy bills rather than constant band-aid fixes?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. Well, I obviously don't agree with the assessment that Senator Pocock makes of the cost of living support that is being provided to every household. Our government thinks that that is important. Our government thinks that it is important when households are under pressure to provide them support where we can, and that is the approach we've taken right across the term. But, Senator, your question seems to imply that it's an either-or, and we don't accept that either. We do think that there are opportunities to support households to build their own energy resilience and to make enduring savings on their bills. And it is precisely why We've made the investments that we have over this term to support households to do just that. And I talked about some of those in my answer to your last question. Those households are already seeing results. The amount of investment necessary for a household depends on your circumstances, but there are things families can do, and we're taking every step that we can to help them do that.
Thank you, Senator McAllister. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and Multicultural Affairs, Senator Watt. Minister, according to ABS data, that's Australian Bureau of Statistics data, last month 201,490 new foreign students arrived in Australia. This is a new record for the month of February. Minister, where are these people going to sleep?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Roberts. For starters, obviously, Senator Roberts, this government has done more in 3 years to build new housing than we saw in 10 years under a coalition government. So that's the first thing. And, of course, what we know is that every measure this government has introduced to build more housing while they've been opposition, they voted against while they were in opposition. So for 10 years in government, they did nothing about housing, didn't build a single public home, didn't build a single social home. They get into opposition and they vote against everything we do to build more homes. So that's the first part of the answer, Senator Roberts. But, Senator Roberts, as you'll recall, not that long ago, this government sought to pass legislation that would reduce overseas student numbers, because we did recognise there had been an increase to that. And who voted against that as well? That was the opposition voted against that. And who was the shadow education minister who led the charge against that? That was Senator Henderson. She's got a lot to say now, but she led the charge against our legislation to try to introduce caps on international student numbers. So, Senator Roberts, we will continue to act on both of these things. We will continue to deliver the housing that the opposition voted against. We have taken different measures outside of legislation to deal with the number of international students. But I might also make the point, Senator Roberts, that in the meantime our government has acted and migration levels are coming down as a result of the measures that we've taken. In fact, there are fewer people arriving into Australia now than when someone else was the Home Affairs Minister. Who would that be? Peter Dutton. Mr Dutton. So for all of the promises Mr Dutton is making about immigration now, when he was actually the minister in charge of this, there were more people moving to Australia and migrating to Australia than there are now.
Time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
On the 11th of December 2023, then Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill issued a press statement which included the comment, quote, "We are going to make sure that we bring numbers back under control." End of quote. Minister, clearly you have not succeeded in getting the numbers back under control. Can you please explain the reason why this government has not been able to control how many people arrive in Australia?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Well, as I said, Senator Roberts, as a result of the actions this government has taken, we are seeing migration numbers fall in Australia compared to what they were when we came to office as a result of the policies of the opposition. In fact, to give you a few more statistics on this, Senator Roberts, there were 10,000 more overseas student arrivals in Australia in January 2019 when, guess who, Mr Dutton was in charge of our borders. And more importantly, the number of student visa applications in Australia has dropped by 30% compared with this time last year. So this is proof that our measures are working, despite the coalition voting to block our plan to cap overseas student numbers. Now, we've all seen over the last couple of years the results of Mr Dutton leaving us with a broken migration system, the Albanian crime gangs who've been rorting our visa system and more still. We've been dealing with that and cleaning it up, and we're now seeing the results with migration numbers falling.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. In the June quarter 2022, just after your election, housing starts were 47,000. Latest ABS data for the September quarter last year shows just 42,000 starts. You are building fewer homes while bringing in more new arrivals, and that has caused the housing catastrophe. Minister, if this government is not controlling immigration numbers, who is? Is it the bureaucrats, the universities, the Chinese and Indian government? Who is in control of Australia's immigration program?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Watt.
Well, I can assure you, Senator Roberts, it's not the one world government in control of our policies. That's definitely not the case. The Australian government, of course, is in charge of our migration policies, and it's the Australian government who has reduced migration numbers over the last 3 years through a variety of measures, including a number of measures that the very vocal Senator Canavan over there voted against. So they've got a lot of things to say from the cheap seats over there in opposition, but whenever they get the chance to vote on something, they vote against it. And Senator Roberts, I don't know whether the figures you've just quoted about the number of housing starts are correct or not. I'd have to check those. But what I do know is that the construction of new housing being funded through our Housing Australia Future Fund was held up for month after month after month by the unholy coalition of the Liberals, the Nationals, One Nation and the Greens, blocking our legislation, preventing spending on housing that has finally been passed by the Senate, still with the opposition of this lot over there, and we're now getting on with building those homes.
Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Science and comes to the financial implosion of Sanjeev Gupta's GFG Alliance. The Liberty Bell Bay aluminium smelter is one of the biggest manganese smelters in the world and one of the greenest thanks to our hydropower, and it's one of the largest manufacturing operations in Tasmania. The 260 workers employed at the smelter are extremely worried about their future, and with good reason, as you would know. We now know that Mr Gupta's company Liberty One Steel Primary UK granted security over its entire holding in Liberty Bell Bay to the American vulture capital firm White Oak Global Advisors. What specific measures is the government prepared to take to ensure this vital manufacturing facility and Tasmanian employer will be protected and not ravaged and sold with no regard for Australia's national interest or the future of its employees in Tasmania?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Lambie, and thank you for your interest in this this company. I know you've taken a great deal of interest in it, and I know your colleague in South Australia, Mr. Rex Patrick, is also taking an interest in Whyalla. The short answer is that we believe in this industry. We've shown by the way in which we've stepped into one of Mr Gupta's other businesses, namely the Whyalla Steelworks, that this government is prepared to put its money where its mouth is in terms of supporting jobs, the 261 workers that you've talked about here, but of course many more workers in Whyalla. One of the reasons that we had to intervene in the Whyalla operation was because the company was in severe financial trouble. It was close to going into administration, and of course that very fine South Australian government, led by that very fine Premier, Mr Malinauskas, worked very closely with the federal government and again that terrific Minister, Minister Hussack, who I know you've been talking with, to ensure the long-term security and the ability of this country to continue to build or to produce steel, which is absolutely vital to a future made in Australia. We have the same concerns, obviously, for the workers in Tasmania. It's a little bit unclear
to... Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. The South Australian Treasury estimated that Whyalla Steelworks needs roughly $3 billion. Since then, Koodamentha have found GFG has run the Whyalla Steelworks into the ground. A variety of packages and amounts have been mentioned ranging from $1 billion to $2.4 billion. How much Commonwealth funding will be made available to support fixing up Whyalla? And given that manganese from the Liberty Bell Bay is vital in steel production, are some of these funds being considered for Liberty Bell Bay?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Farrell.
Look, the short answer to your question, Senator, is that the funding that both the state and the federal government have provided is for Whyalla. To the best of my knowledge, and I will consult with Minister Husic to find out whether or not there is a request from the Gupta's operations in Tasmania. I'm not aware of any, but that's not to say that they're not there, and I'm happy to follow that up. Obviously, the priority at the moment has been Whyalla, and if you can keep the Whyalla steelworks going, as this rescue package does, that's obviously of benefit to the Tasmanian operations because, as you say, they are supplying product into Whyalla. I was up in Whyalla a few weeks ago with Premier Malinauskas.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie, second supplementary.
Thank you. Given the sorry state of the steelworks and the turmoil in global trade thanks to President Trump's tariff war, how can the government be confident that Cooter Mentha will find a new buyer that is also prepared to invest in the scale required to transform the now terribly degraded Whyalla steelworks? Does the government still rule out nationalising the Whyalla steelworks today?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Lambie, for her second supplementary question. The steelworks and its associated minerals is, I believe, a long-term going concern. It was a profitable business in the way in which it has previously been run. Under Mr Gupta, there's certainly been a range of issues. And you've mentioned some of them. The fact that maintenance had not been conducted on the site. I'm confident that at the end of this process, the Whyalla Steelworks will be a going concern, and that there will be other businesses.
Senator Lambie.
Sorry, on point of order, I was just wondering whether the government was still ruling out nationalising Whyalla. Is it on the table, or is it just sitting there? Sorry.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. The minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Farrell.
I guess what I'm saying to you, Senator Lambie, is I don't think that's going to be necessary because I believe this is an ongoing concern.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister for Emergency Management, Senator McAllister. Just over 3 weeks ago, Tropical Cyclone Alfred was bearing down on south-east Queensland and northern New South Wales. Now, while we're also thankful the impacts weren't as extreme as feared, many have felt the impacts of flooding and other damage caused by the storm. How are affected communities responding to the aftermath of Alfred, and any support that might be available?
Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, Senator Sheldon. Well, this has been a really challenging time for communities in south-east Queensland and in northern New South Wales. Tropical Cyclone Alfred was not unprecedented, but it was highly unusual. It was a Category 2 cyclone bearing down on one of the most densely populated regions in Australia. And I know that the thoughts of all Australians were with those potentially in its path. At one point during the event, 450,000 Australians had lost power, perhaps the most significant power outage in Australia's history. And we saw through this event the hard work of emergency service personnel, ADF personnel, local government employees, and energy and telco personnel, and thousands of volunteers to keep communities safe. The Albanese government worked very closely with the Queensland and New South Wales governments to support those households that were impacted by ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. For example, supports were jointly funded to people if they lost essential services such as power, gas, water and sewerage for more than 5 days, or if they needed help to cover the cost of emergency essentials like food, clothing and medicine, or if their home became structurally unsafe to live in. We have also, of course, provided Commonwealth-only assistance in the form of the Australian Government Disaster Recovery Payment and the Disaster Recovery Allowance. This latter payment, of course, is a payment to support people who were unable to work for a period as a consequence of the event. Now, we know that this will have a cost on the budget. and the Treasurer has made that clear in recent days. But we think this expenditure is worth it. We think it is critical, and we will stand by the people of South East Queensland and the people of Northern New South Wales as they begin their journey of recovery.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government has been committed to strengthening the Australian government's capacity to respond to events like these and to help them recover, including by establishing the National Emergency Management Agency. What measures were put in place by the government to prepare for this high-risk weather season, and how has that effort made a difference on the ground?
Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, Senator. Well, a key priority for our government has been to rebuild capability in disaster resilience, response and recovery after the Coalition's disastrous period in office. We have established the first ever emergency stockpile. During ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, the stockpile deployed 125,000 sandbags to Queensland and 6 large generators to New South Wales to support the response. We've increased the national aerial fleet investment, and states and territories now have access to a large air tanker and 3 federally funded heavy-lift helicopters. And during Alfred, these were pre-positioned in Bundaberg and another in Coffs Harbour. We have funded Disaster Relief Australia, and again in Alfred, DRA staff were deployed to help with the clean-up in Queensland. We know that the climate's changing and Australians will face more severe events of this kind, and it's why we have made these investments, and it's a stark contrast to those opposite. Their promise of reckless cuts will send a chill through communities affected by natural disasters.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
Well, I do want to commend all the work done by emergency management personnel and public servants, who I know work so hard to help their fellow Australians in times of need. With all the good work of our public service in a crisis, it beggars belief that in the days leading up to Alfred's impact, the Shadow Minister could not rule out cuts to the National Emergency Management Agency. What would cuts to NEMA mean for the Australian government's capacity to support communities through natural disasters?
Order. Before I call the minister, there will be order. Minister McAllister.
Well, the National Emergency Management Agency was created by our government, and I think it has shown why a well-coordinated and properly resourced agency is so important to keeping Australians safe. And whether that is running the National Situation Room, delivering hundreds of thousands of sandbags to Queensland councils, or working to maintain and establish supply chains, that capability has been widely recognised as changing our ability to support the states in managing natural disasters. And so that refusal by the Shadow Emergency Management Minister to rule out jobs cuts at NEMA are disturbing. But of course they have her boss's fingerprints all over them. This man, Mr Dutton, is a person who has described Labor's investments in public service capability as wasteful spending and is committed to cutting 36,000 public servants.
Minister, please resume your seat. Withdraw those remarks. Senator Ruston.
Withdraw.
Thank you. Senator McAllister.
I think the question is this: who is it that the Coalition plans to fire at NEMA if they win the election?
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. On the 16th of March 2025, there were new media reports in The Age and 60 Minutes of sickening violence and rorts on construction sites. Minister, were any of these incidents reported by The Age or 60 Minutes on Commonwealth-funded infrastructure projects?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Wong.
Senator, I'm advised that, well, first, obviously, as I said in response to the first question from Senator Cash, that the allegations and the footage were abhorrent. I would also make the point, I appreciate you don't agree with this, that appointing an independent administrator to clean up the CFMEU was the strongest action a government could take. The deregistration of the union, as proposed by you and your colleagues, would allow those elements to operate without regulation, including on construction sites, including on Commonwealth construction sites. So, well, the leader says not true. That is clearly the case, and I think the minister's made that clear. I don't have in my head the list of all sites on which those allegations were uncovered, included. Well, I don't, including. I would make the point is that the administrator has removed dozens of officials, organisers and delegates, and that the allegations.
Minister, please retrieve your seat. Senator Mackenzie.
Point of order on relevance. It was a very direct question about whether any of these sites where this sickening behaviour was evidence were Commonwealth-funded infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie, and the minister has answered that part of your question, and you also referred to media reports, and the minister has answered that part of your question that you raised in a point of order. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, Senator, I was trying to answer the question. I said I don't have that in my head. What I can say to you is first that a number of the allegations were investigated or were unearthed in part because of the work or wholly because of the work that the administrator has undertaken. I now have been provided with some information about the infrastructure portfolio. Obviously, I'm not representing the Minister for Infrastructure. I'm advised that where the Commonwealth has a direct funding and contracting role, Ms King has asked her department to provide advice. She has also written to, with the Minister for Finance, to the chairs of ARTC, WSA and National Intermodal, seeking assurance of compliance with relevant laws. Where we have Commonwealth partnerships with states to deliver projects, we have embedded requirements in our funding agreement to prevent these issues from occurring, and references. She has written to state and territory counterparts to say that improper conduct should be. Expired.
Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
Last year I wrote to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development regarding the unlawful activity by the CFMEU on Commonwealth-funded infrastructure projects, and she advised she had asked state and territory ministers to report to her any activity. Has the Allen government in Victoria provided any reports to the Commonwealth of unlawful CFMEU behaviour on Commonwealth-funded infrastructure projects, as my letter requested, as her response said, and as your answer to my first question outlined?
Senator Mackenzie, I will draw to your attention the Infrastructure Minister question should be directed to Senator McCarthy, but I think Minister Wong has indicated she can answer parts of your question. Minister.
Thank you. I understand, first, that the Minister has written to state and territory counterparts to convey that any information regarding improper or criminal conduct should be reported immediately to the relevant regulator. In relation specifically to your question about Victoria, the advice I have is that the Minister has previously made clear to her counterparts the expectation that illegal conduct or suspicions of such on Commonwealth-funded projects be reported to the department. Prior to the allegations, I'm advised that neither.
I'm coming to it, Senator. Sorry, do you have it? You were standing, Senator Mackenzie. You're sitting down again. Thank you.
She's taking me on faith.
Thank you.
Prior to these allegations, neither the Minister's office nor department had received any information from Victoria. Following these allegations, the Minister has written to her Victorian counterpart to seek an explanation and to underline her expectations on reporting.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary.
What action has the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development undertaken to satisfy herself, given these public reports, that Victoria is indeed complying with her direction that she made last year and that it seems she's had to make again?
Before I call the Minister, I'll remind you once again, Senator Mackenzie, Senator Wong is not the repping minister for Minister King. As I said in your previous question, the repping minister is Senator McCarthy. But I'll invite Minister Wong to answer the question in whatever way she thinks represents your question.
Thank you. Well, I'll provide what answers I can, Senator, and if there's further information, I will provide it to the Senate. The government has first supported the Fair Work Commission in appointing independent administrators to the construction division of the CFMEU. We've asked the Fair Work Ombudsman to undertake a targeted review of all enterprise agreements made by the Victorian branch of the construction division of the CFMEU that apply to big build projects. We've requested the AFP investigate allegations to ensure enterprise agreements and government-funded projects are genuine agreements and workplaces are free from coercion and intimidation. And where the Commonwealth partners with states to deliver a project, we have embedded requirements in funding agreements to prevent these issues from occurring, including emphasising the importance of engaging delivery partners who prioritise ethical practices. And with that, President, I ask that further questions be placed on notice.